Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. And today what we're doing is taking another look at the Insta360 Go 2. So I did make a video a few days ago just giving my thoughts basically on some of the good points, but mainly all of the sort of bad points and all the little niggles that I had with this particular camera, and all the things that were just making it a really bad experience in terms of using this particular camera. Now, I did say in that video that despite the fact that obviously it was more negatives than positives, I don't think it's a bad concept. I think there were certain things that just needed working out, or possibly even could just be user error on my part. So in this video, what I want to do is just go over a few of the things that I've managed to either find workarounds for, figured out what I was doing wrong in some instances, and also come up with a few more things in terms of the positives as well. So first thing I just want to say in terms of things that haven't really changed, and that is the battery life. So the battery life is still an issue, and it's still an issue in the sense that it's not consistent. I've had instances where I've given it to my daughter, she's been making videos, and it will just randomly shut down, and because she's been using it outside of the case, this has been maybe 3 minutes, sometimes it's been 5 minutes, that sort of length, not the usual sort of 12 to 14 sort of minutes that I would expect that it would die out if you were using Pro mode. And in the last video, I did actually mention the fact that the modes in the sense of video modes, Pro mode's the only one that you really want to use. So I have done a little bit more testing with the three various modes, and what I found was, so standard mode will obviously give you the best battery life, it will give you the maximum recording time, and it also makes it a little easier when you're exporting stuff as well, because what it does do is it doesn't record in that bubble shape. So it's not recording a fisheye video, it's actually recording a 16:9 aspect ratio, or 9:16 depending on which one you choose, straight to the memory inside here. So when you actually go to export it, you're essentially exporting the final video. You're not having to then render the video out. Pro mode, as I said, is probably the best one that you want to use because it gives you the maximum amount of flexibility and also the best frame rates. HDR video, now HDR, whenever I've actually tested it, I've always got some weird sort of pixelation, if you like. I get these weird, and it's usually towards the start of the video, so when you first start it and you move, you get a few odd pixels where it's just random colors, sort of like defects in the video. It's not always there, so it'll only be maybe 2 frames, but it's enough to the point where you do notice it. Now, having done the sort of usage that I've used it for, we're only just starting to get some nice weather now, so possibly I might make more use of it going forward. But for the most part, the Pro video is the best one for me because it gives you the maximum flexibility with frame rates. It gives you obviously the full resolution, and it also gives you access to the stabilization, if you like, the flow state stabilization and all the rest of it. So in terms of the modes, I would still say at this point that Pro video is the one that you want to actually use. So yeah, so the battery life unfortunately is still not great. What I have found is the other thing was that it's not consistent either. So one day it might give you 12 minutes out of the just the camera alone outside of the case, and other days it'll give you maybe 5 to 10 minutes before it just randomly shuts down. So yeah, that's a little disappointing in that sense, where it doesn't give you that flexibility where you can just set it to record and leave it. Occasionally you do have to actually monitor it, and because when you've got it attached, it will vibrate, so whoever's using it, they will realize that, yeah, this has actually stopped recording. So that was basically the first thing that I just wanted to touch on. Okay, the other sort of negative thing that somebody did mention in the comments was, I actually mentioned in my video that the little tripod stand, get it to focus, is these little tabs. I feared that the tabs would actually break off. Now somebody else actually made a very good comment in the comment section, that it's not just the tabs, the actual legs themselves are kind of flimsy as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if somebody was actually using this as a tripod out in the open and these actually broke off over time, and then obviously it would leave your sort of case a rather weird shape at that point. But I think these legs, obviously they're not designed to be used in really harsh environments. Whenever you're using them, generally you're going to be putting it down quite carefully, and it's just for the occasional shot here and there. It's not meant to be something that you're actually using all the time. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to comment on the battery side of things was it's kind of random in when it actually shuts down as well. Obviously when you're using it outside of the case, it needs to make sure that it's got enough battery life left over to actually save the video. But what I have found is on occasion when I've actually put it back into the case and gone to check what percentage was left on it, sometimes it has between 8 and 10% left over. So that seems quite a high sort of margin that they're leaving in order to try and make sure that they don't have no corruption and that the videos do actually save. I think that's something that they could possibly tweak in the firmware somewhere down the line to maybe drop it down to say 4%, something like that, before it then completely shuts down on you. Because essentially between 8 you can then again accept, because you don't know how much power it's going to need to actually save and then shut down. But to have 10% left over when you actually put it back in the case, that's quite a lot. So that's obviously 10% of your possible recording time that's being reduced. So that's something that possibly could get tweaked in the firmware somewhere down the line. Okay, so coming on to the next sort of thing that I wanted to concentrate on, and this is something that I mentioned in my original video, and I kind of got this one wrong, but at the time I didn't know what I know now. So yes, you can offload videos from the Insta360 to the iPhone or desktop or whatever it is, without having to actually render the video out. Now that both presents you with a positive and a negative. The positive side is obviously it means that you can get the data off it, format this, and then get back to recording a little bit more video. Now bear in mind that if you were to fill this, more than likely you've probably killed the internal battery anyway, so you still have to give it time to actually recharge. And the other thing is obviously when it's transferring, it does heat up, it does kill the battery as well. So as long as it's in the case, it won't affect it too much, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, yeah, you just quickly clear and you're back to shooting again. There still probably will be a little bit of a downtime. Now, when it comes to that video that you have offloaded, it's not always completely ideal either, because what happens is, yes, you can edit it on the iPhone, and what I've actually found now is that you're probably better off when it comes to editing the video, doing it on the iPhone as opposed to the desktop. Even though for me personally that's actually worse, because I want to then bring that into Final Cut Pro and make use of the video there. But for everybody else out there that's using this just as a sort of action camera or general camera, you're probably better off for the simple reason that the iPhone allows you to use keyframes. And what I'll probably do is just do a separate video. This is something that Philip Bloom actually contacted me on my video, and he went through quite a few of these the topics that I raised in my previous video, and one of the things that he did help me out with was just showing me how to do keyframes. Now, the video that he sent me a link to, that didn't actually have any audio, and it was kind of hard to figure out what he was doing in order to get it to actually use keyframes. But essentially, the reason keyframes matter and why I say the iPhone's better in terms of editing software as opposed to the desktop is, if you can use keyframes, then it means that whatever sort of angle you've started your video at, you don't necessarily have to use that all the way through. So obviously you've got a fisheye sort of capture. It's capturing in a fisheye sort of image, and you can move your image within that to a certain extent without actually clipping all your corners completely off. Now, what the iPhone does is it allows you to use those keyframes, so you can actually change it throughout the video, whereas on the desktop, on the Mac desktop anyway, I've not tried it on the PC, but on the Mac, it only allows you to change it throughout the whole video. So whatever change you make is applied to the whole video, whereas on the iPhone, you can literally go a 2-second clip and have it angled straight, and then say for example I look down but it's not quite captured what's on my table in front of me, I can then move that image down for the next segment, and then when I look back up I can then bring it back up again. So that's what you can use keyframes for, that unfortunately I don't think is available on the desktop just yet. Philip Bloom did mention in the messages back and forth that that's something that apparently Insta360 are working on. So they are working on trying to get the same functionality between iPad, iPhone, obviously any smartphone app, Android as well, and also the desktop as well. So basically give you all the same features. ProRes is one thing that will probably be limited to the desktop app, because there's not really the use case for it when you're using it on a smartphone. But other than that, I think everything else they are working on trying to bring together. And that's something that I did have a few comments in my original video saying, why are you mentioning this when it's just a case of how you're using the software or something like that. This is how we actually get these changes made. If we make these videos and we highlight the issues and the problems that we're having, firstly, it allows other people to actually help us. There's certain things that obviously I picked up on through other people's help, and that now means that it's a little bit of a better experience for me. But obviously all you guys out there that haven't made use of it yet, you're going to be a little bit more educated in terms of what's the best way to actually make use of it, depending on what you're shooting and also how you want to actually make use of that footage. So yeah, I think making these kind of videos where we do highlight these things, firstly educates ourselves. So obviously I've learned a lot from that video as well, but also it means that certain things like those firmware upgrades or updates to the software, to the firmware of the camera itself, those kind of things can get done because we're actually highlighting it and we're making it clear that that's something that we need as consumers, essentially. Right, so yeah, for the keyframe section, what I will do is I'll do a separate video, because that can just be a short clip. I don't really want to extend this video too much longer than it probably already is going to go. Okay, so one thing that I forgot to mention in the original video that I just wanted to highlight. So when you're actually making use of the camera, obviously when you're in the case, you can press the button to connect, and then what it does is whichever mode you're in, say for example you want to change the settings for that particular mode. So right now we're in just normal video. Rather than scrolling all the way through, so normally you would use this mode button, so not the record one, the other one, and you'd click all the way through to settings. If you want to just change settings for that particular mode, then what you can do is just hold the record button, and that will then go into the settings for that one format, whether that be video, photo, time-lapse, whatever. It'll just go into the settings for that particular thing, and you can just make whatever changes you want to make. It saves you having to go all the way back around. So for example, if you just want to change your frame rate, rather than having to click all the way through to settings, you just hold the record button, and then it brings up the sort of menu, and then you can just use the mode button to go down through them and make whatever changes that you want to make. And then there's a little done at the bottom, but also if you just leave it, it will go back as well. So that's just a little tip that I wanted to throw in there for anybody that's either thinking of buying this or has already purchased it and they're using the long way of actually getting to the settings. Okay, so one other thing that I did want to mention just on the battery life sort of segment that I forgot to mention earlier was it is still, my unit is still doing that same thing where if I leave it for a few days, inside the case without using it, and isn't necessarily even a few days, because I think I've used this pretty much at least every other day since I've had it. If I've not used it, then my daughter's used it. And the one thing that it's still doing is whilst it's in the case and the case is fully charged, the camera itself is still losing battery. So yesterday I actually went to record this very same video. I was going to record a few clips in preparation to do a few live sort of edits, but when I went to actually use the camera was only on around 36%. It's still doing that same thing where it's dying out, and essentially to get it to charge back up again, I have to go open the case, hold the mode button to basically get this light to come back on and go orange or green, whichever, sorry, not green, go orange or red, depending on what lighting you're in. It'll either look orange or red. But yeah, so that's a slight little niggle. It's not the end of the world because it does charge up relatively quickly in the case. So I think I left it for only maybe about 5 minutes and it was up to, I think it was about 80% odd. So I'm not sure exactly what percentage it was on when I first opened it, but it got up to around the 80% mark relatively quickly. It's just whenever I start these kind of things, because I want to do generally long videos, one long cut, I want it to be at 100%, so then I know I'm getting the maximum out of it. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to just mention again that I did mention in my last video, and that is the file sizes. So the file sizes for me, considering the quality that you're getting out of it, and as I said, the quality isn't bad. I'm not saying that the quality that you get out of this camera is bad. If anything, I'm actually really impressed by what you're getting out of such a small unit. But for a 1440p video, the file size is very large. So even if you go off the normal Pro video, 1 minute of Pro video works out to roughly around 600 megabytes, which is much bigger than what I get even with my iPhone 12 Pro Max, which is roughly around 440 megabytes for 1 minute of video. Now it does vary, so depending on if you do loads of short clips, sometimes it doesn't look like it's going to add up to the 600 megabytes for 1 minute's worth of video. So it can vary, and obviously bit rates, and depending on what scene you're filming, your bit rates will probably fluctuate, because I don't think it's a fixed bit rate either way. But I did notice in the firmware that it does have an option for where it lists H.264, so I don't know whether that's something that they could possibly bring down the line, where it actually records in H.265 rather than recording in 264 and then converting to 265 in the app, if you choose to do so. But yeah, that's something that I just wanted to mention, that the file sizes are still huge, and that obviously results in less video that you can actually record at the end of the day. So yeah, that's just something I wanted to mention. Right, now aside from everything I've mentioned so far, the only other things that I really wanted to mention was I did, even before Philip Bloom actually messaged me on my channel, I did watch his video, and it was a similar sort of vibe from him, where he was kind of conflicted in his review of the unit, where it's got a lot of things going for it, but for me, obviously for me personally, it was all of those little niggles that were stopping it from being the sort of perfect camera, if you like. But yeah, one thing that I did take away from his video was the other mount that we have. I noticed that he actually stuck some probably neodymium magnets onto the bottom of it, so he actually converted the sort of stick-on mount. One second. So he actually converted this mount into essentially a magnetized mount as well. So that way you could actually stick your camera in there, and not only just stick this using the tape, but essentially just stick it onto any surface by attaching magnets onto the back of it just here, which I thought was a very good idea in the sense that it allows you to actually rotate the camera. So unlike having just the camera and sticking this to a metal surface, if you stick this to a metal surface on its own, then it's always at the same orientation, so it's always looking straight. Whereas if you put it in here and you stick this on, it still allows you to basically rotate this as you choose, basically. So yeah, that I thought was a very clever little trick that he actually showed in one of his videos. So that's maybe a little tip that you can actually take from his video. I mean, I would suggest everybody go watch his video anyway, because there was a lot in there that I actually took away from it, and aside from all the little niggles, the more of these kind of videos that you see, the more ideas you'll actually get in terms of how you can actually best use this, and how you can actually incorporate it into whatever it is that you want to actually do with these particular cameras. I mean, for me personally, it was literally just a second viewpoint. So for me personally, it's more a case of I just want the longest video whilst being as flexible as possible. The fact that this does have a tripod mount at the bottom means that I'll probably end up using this more so just as this sort of desk angle, if you like, another viewpoint. But for everybody else out there that's using it more for point of view and those kind of shots, his video was really good for that kind of stuff. Yeah, right, so that's it for this video. Obviously I will keep experimenting, I will keep playing about with it, and hopefully we'll see some more updates and everything as well. One final thing that I wanted to just mention with regards to the firmware issues that I mentioned in my original video. So I'm not sure what happened with my unit. When I first unboxed this and set it up, it did do the firmware update, but for whatever reason it obviously didn't work, because when I then used the PC to do it, it does now show the option to basically disable the light. So in order to do that, what you do is you navigate across to your settings. So I'll just go there now, you click into settings and you come down to this one here. So the one just below the high bit rate or standard bit rate, you have a little sort of bulb And if you click on that, as you can see, the light has just gone out. If I click on it again, the light comes back on. So yeah, that option to basically turn off the light, it is in there. I'm not sure why it wasn't showing up initially. I went through that several times before I obviously made my first video, because I did double check, and I also checked in the apps as well. I don't think it still shows up in the apps, but it's in the camera. So if you did want to just turn that light off, I don't know whether or not that affects battery life or not, but I suppose it can't hurt, can it? Yeah, so that's it for this particular video. As I say, if I do find any more workarounds or anything, I will make follow-up videos. And what I will also be doing is I'll do a video dedicated on the app itself, because that's something that you probably need to spend a little bit more time on, just to make sure that you're understanding fully what you can do and how you might actually be better off using the iPhone app rather than, or any smartphone app, rather than using the desktop, how I was using it. And the desktop is still more suited for me, but in terms of just capturing a shot and exporting it and just keeping it at that, you're probably better off with the iPhone. So I will do a separate video on that. Obviously, if you do still have any questions, drop them down in the comment section below. If you haven't already done so, please do subscribe to the channel, and also hit the bell icon, that way you're notified whenever I upload a new video. And I'd really appreciate if you do give this video a thumbs up, that way more people can see it. And other than that, thanks very much for watching. And that will then go into the sort of menu for that one format.